Mr. Hugh Button. So welcome to the studio, Butto.
Thank you very much, Eddie. Cheers.
When you were 18, you lost your brother tragically in a accident.
I guess grief is what's brought me here today. They have to go through the process themselves, and that's what's very hard with grief. Is it is a very suffocating, relentless, exhausting emotion because you never ever can escape it.
TradeMutt Radio, coming through on your wireless.
What do you fly?
Oh, we got a 172 XP.
How often do you take it up?
Oh, I don't know, a dozen times a month.
Fuck yeah, my brother's a pilot. He was his first after he got his PPL, he was his first passenger.
Yeah.
And he learned to fly out of Bankstown Airport in Sydney.
Yeah.
And mum works night shift.
Yeah.
Two older brothers. Nick's my middle brother, the pilot. Got his private pilot size, and he's like, Daniel, you want to come, like that, you be my first passenger, let's go up for a flight. Mum's sleeping, like we're trying to sleep in the daytime, we're leaving. Mum's up out of bed, like waving us off. Like it was the last time she was ever going to see either of us. And he's like, no. And to be honest, I thought it probably could have been the last time that she saw us. And then my brothers were up over fucking Western Sydney, Bankstown, and he's like, do you want to feel the G's? And he's going, like this shit. And I was like, yeah, fucking hell. But they're pretty manoeuvrable.
Yeah. Safe as houses.
And even like a small Cessna, like you can fucking do a barrel roll and shit in it, no worries. Like they can do it. Fucking videos and shit.
Yeah, I'm sure there
People
are.
just going for it.
It's upper.
Not that you'd,
Need to.
Am I the right way up or? Anyway, have we started the podcast?
We sort of have started. Yes,
you take the reins of the intro.
Should
on
I
this
do
one?
the intro on
Go
this
on.
one?
I think you've earned it. I think you've earned it, big guy.
Thanks, mate. I really appreciate it. 50th episode, 52nd episode.
Finally got an intro.
Yeah. No, well, our guest today is someone that we've been trying to get on the podcast for a while. Probably pretty much since we launched the podcast. We've been talking about getting Butto on, and we go a long way back.
Any means. I think when I first left school, my first big contract mustering job was in 2002 to a big place called Bowen Downs, and I went up there to work for a wonderful man, Mr. K. Ross, and he had this absolutely annoying as shit little boy. Used to drink the Camelback Dry, leave the key on so my bike wouldn't start. And you'd get to the dinner table and he just wouldn't shut up. I don't know if this resonates with you, Dan, at all, but anyway, he may be in the room today.
It definitely resonates with me, but he owned that. He talks about how he used to be an annoying little prick around the table. He didn't mention leaving the ignition on of the motorbike or drinking your Camelback, but I can imagine.
But those booming tones are the one of Mr. Hugh Button. So welcome to the studio, Butto.
Thank you very much, Eddie. Cheers.
But, mate, talk us through, 2002, did you say? Was it 2002?
Mate, it was 2002, first year out of school. It was, a lot of bushfellas. It's like your badge of honour going contract mustering, which at that time was borrowing a motorbike and a Toyota off Dad to go mustering for 4 days for shearing at Bowen Downs. And then I promptly took my cheque that I'd made in that 4 days and went to the Roma races and spent the lot. Came home with my tail between my legs on the Sunday night. It was a great period of my life that week.
What was it like working for Ken Ross back in the day? I couldn't imagine. I could not.
Oh, no, it was terrific. He was good. I was 17, bloody nervous as all shit, and he gave me a go. He gave me a chance and was very fair. And yeah, we had a good time. Told me a lot of stories. Told me a lot of. He used to talk a bit too, but no, it was all good. It was wonderful. I'm indebted to him forever for the opportunity.
I can't imagine that Ken Ross really is as bad as what E. Ross makes him.
Oh no, there's definitely Eddie was doing all the talking when it was he and Ken at the same table. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that. And the beautiful Sue Ross, she's a lovely, lovely lady. Cooked us and looked after us.
Mum, she's the best. Yeah, well, she's out in Longreach at the moment. It's weird. Everyone we're talking about is, back out there. But anyway, it's good to have you in here, mate. You're down for the birth of your fourth child?
Mate, we are on Monday morning. We welcomed Reginald John Button, 8 pounds too. He's only a bit of a jockey in our camp. We've had a 9.5 and a 10 and an 8.6 or something. But no, he's third son, fourth child. We've got a daughter as well, obviously, and Amanda did a wonderful job, and they're both very happy and healthy, which is terrific. It's having children, really life gets going when you have kids. So,
and you've had 4, and how old's the oldest one?
Charlie's 5.5. So
so
we've
you've
got
been
4,
quick.
5.5 and under. Yeah, my dear wife was keen for 6 kids, and I said I'd be good for 4. And anyway,
when you got to 5,
shouldn't that conversation be the other way around? If she's telling you she's good for it, like.
No, so you know,
We're talking. We're probably talking financially, actually, aren't we?
Well, I think 4 kids will do us. That's enough.
So 4 kids. So you're looking at a GXL wagon for the next sort of 20 years.
Get it to Rago.
Mate, pretty much something like that. It's more about the trailer or the pod on top. It's the next bloody purchase that we got to worry about.
Oh dear,
Reggie's
mate,
a great name.
Yeah, I was just saying, old names they're coming back, aren't
In
they?
a big fucking way, man.
Yeah, they're great. It's a cracker. Mate, what's it? You know, having 4 kids now in less than 6 years. I mean, how's that been for you as a bloke? You know, sort of not rushed into fatherhood, but you've become a father 4 times over.
Oh, it's funny. Everyone debates about that, but I reckon it's great. Get in, you got nappies and wipes and stuff everywhere, and you're cooking tea, so you may as well be doing it for 4, let alone a couple at a time. So, no, it's good. Bloody everything about parenthood's wonderful. It really is, and 5 years into it, we're already realising just how quickly it all goes, and we're very blessed. We live in a wonderful place to have children, and my beautiful wife is a wonderful mother, and the two of us, we enjoy it. We really enjoy it, and we get through it pretty easily and just chip in and do it, and it's, I don't really see it any differently.
God, you're saying all the right things, Huey.
I'm trying to think the other connection we've got is that, well, there's a couple, obviously, but the other one was when Mum rolled her car. Do you remember that?
That's right. My mother only touched on that this morning. Was talking about it. Yeah,
because
she goes, was Eddie a little boy in that car when that happened? Yeah,
bloody oath I was. I've told you this, Jan, haven't I? Yeah, coming up the
Is this the same time you fucking got the twisties? The chunky
no,
twisties?
that's another yarn. No, this is when I must have been grade 1 at our ladies in Longreach, and Mum picked us up in the afternoon, and we used to go out when Dad first started managing Bowen Downs for that first year. And, Mum picked me up. Laura was in the baby seat and took off down the Crosmore Road towards Muttaburra to go to Bowen Downs. And I remember Mum saying that she got some DVDs from Blockbuster. Or no, they were VHSs then to watch on the weekend. And I climbed over the back seat into the boot and was reading one of them, fell asleep, woke up, after doing about 4 or 5 flips in this car. I survived. I was asleep in the boot. And it was wild.
That's where it all went wrong.
That's where it all went wrong. That's a head knock I copped.
I'm starting to understand why he's such a horrible driver. He must get it from soup. Ooh, shots fired.
Fuck, I can drive.
Across the bow.
Right. Mate, but, I mean, where to start? I suppose, you know.
We should start with that shirt.
Yeah.
Really.
Absolutely. And you're an early adopter of the TradeMutt of the product line. This is an original 2018 shirt you've got on for anyone watching the podcast. It is, yeah.
2018, got in and ordered this one, and what's the green and gold one? Ordered one of them.
The Coity.
The Coity, and I ordered some others, thought it was a good idea, gave them to some other loud characters, and I was just keen to get on board from the start, and it was about that time I started building a set of cattle yards at home, and so there was plenty of welding and grinding. I thought, we'll bloody see if these fellas are fair dinkum, and the shirt stood the test of time. Ripped a couple of sleeves off, so Amanda had to bloody shorten the sleeves up. And here it is. I think this might be its last run though today.
Give it a retirement.
That shirt represents, like, that embodies the process that we don't know how we got those here. We don't actually know how we got those made.
No,
because we did not have a fucking clue what we were doing, and my God,
somehow it just happened, didn't it?
Yeah.
So you reckon this is the perfect opportunity to say you fellas are bloody legends for what you've done, and that was my thinking when I first saw them. I thought, what a great idea. These fellas are onto it. I'm going to jump on board and buy some shirts and support it. So thank you to everyone that you've helped in your journey so far.
Oh,
thanks, mate.
Bloody wonderful.
Lovely
really
thing to say,
it.
and it continues to blow us away. Like the support, like there is none of this. There's no podcast. There's no nothing without all the community support. And so you're one of many who shares that sentiment. I'm sure.
It's funny because I don't know, people pick on me a lot for some reason. I have one of these shirts and they go, "Oh, geez, Butto, what's that you're wearing?" So, well, it's actually a conversation starter. Do you want the rundown? And I don't know, most people say, where do you get them? I want one now. And other people are very like, that's a good idea. And you can see them thinking about it and reflecting on it and touching on it and understing that it is. And
gets the cogs turning.
Very much so. Very good.
And I was just on a call just before and you get two kind of reactions. Some people are like, oh, geez, they're fucking fantastic. What's the deal? Conversation started about mental health. Or, fuck me, that is hideous. What the fuck's with that? Conversation started about mental health. So either way, whether you love them or hate them,
that's what they're doing.
They're getting tongues wagging. So
definitely, definitely.
Bloody oath. Well, mate, let's talk about your background. So you're living on a property between Longreach and Muttaburra. That's 60 something k.
Yeah, 80 k's north of Longreach.
80 k's north of Longreach.
Born and bred Western Queensland boy. I guess, what am I, 4th generation, I think. I've always lived out there, love the world, love it. Had a very privileged upbringing. I believe I had a very privileged upbringing. Wonderful family and whatnot, 2 older siblings. My brother Rodney was 11 years older than me, my sister's 8 years older than me. Went away to boarding school, went to Toowoomba Prep and Churchie, which was terrific. Stayed in Brizzy and played a bit of rugby. Pretended for a while, like a lot of people do, that bloody it might take me somewhere.
There was a possibility.
Yeah, I should have got the nod early that it wasn't going to happen. Started a diesel mechanic apprenticeship and then went on to do a carpentry apprenticeship and, did a bit of time down here, which was good. And, now fast forward, a few things have changed in life and now my wife Amanda and our 4 kids live on the family property, Crosmore, 80 k's north of Longridge. And, it's been a bloody terrific last 10 years with this drought. It's been very character building, but we're getting there and I reckon we're in for a really exciting time in agriculture. People are starting to realise the importance of it and technologies are changing and so that's home for us and that's our existence and
it's hard to believe it's bloody that drought and how long it's fucking gone on for you out there.
How long's Crosmore been in the family?
Oh mate, it's only a new one. It's 30 years this year.
Right.
So yeah.
Party?
Sorry?
Party?
Oh, I don't think so. Too busy changing nappies.
Mate, because we were talking before in 2014 when I came back and my mate had passed away in that helicopter accident and I came out and gave you a few days work there. Yeah. Busting all those NLIS tags on those calves in the round yard, remember? We're like, how are we going to get all these fucking NLIS tags on here? I was like, mate, we'll just jam them all in this round yard and we'll walk along, we'll just clip them on. And, and that was the first time we'd ever destocked fully, wasn't it?
That was the beginning of it, and then 2015, that was 14, then 15 we were completely destocked, 100% destocked, and then again last year in 2020 we were 100% destocked. And they were the 2 worst years by far. It's been a tough time.
How have you dealt with all of that?
I think the thing is at the start you got to make the hard decisions, and then once the hard decisions have been made, you're in that motion and you play on sort of thing.
Yeah.
I guess probably from my own life experiences with what we're about to talk about and whatnot, I've probably got that ability in my mind to not accept, like it's not my fault, the drought. I can put that aside and say, look, I've tried my best. I've put my best foot forward.
Control the controllables.
Yeah, it's not my responsibility. It's my responsibility to do the very best I can in the situation, but I can't control. It's bigger than us, and I can accept that. And continue on. So
just to educate a city boy over here, destocking is obviously not a great fucking situation to be in. That reflects
it's
not
like
a good time.
It's pretty much like owning a building of shops and you kick all your tenants out and you still got to pay all the overheads and rates on a.
You got nothing going to bring any coin in.
And so the hard decisions that have to be made at that point in time is just realising that you're going to have to destock and that you're going to have to, like, is that, obviously it's not that easy, but...
I think it's an acceptance thing. And that's what, once we get through this drought, it's not the best way to go about it by any means, but once we also, for those of us that survive it, I think it'll be actually a really good change to the culture of the rural industries that we need. All of a sudden people are understanding a lot more about what they do and how they do it, and they're looking for other ways. And I think a lot of people from this drought have it's been a bit of an education in terms of making a lot more decision making and understanding what makes their businesses tick, and people have become more business orientated as a result. And so that was sort of my way I see it, is it's just numbers. You'd take all the emotion out of it, forget about old bloody Daisy the cow, and it's just numbers. Like any business.
Yeah, so disconnecting from the cattle itself or the life.
It can't be an emotional decision. It has to be a business decision.
Yeah, completely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and do people struggle with that? Like, do people generally struggle with making that decision when the writing's on the wall?
I don't necessarily like to be the judge, but you see people doing things and you think, oh, gee, I wouldn't be doing it like that. There possibly is a better way to do it, but hindsight's an interesting thing, and everyone's situation is so different. Well, everyone's situation is different, so... Yeah, but I certainly think there's probably people that could do it in a different way.
And so are you completely destocked right now?
No, we've actually had a bit of rain this year. We had a mild summer and then we had some good Easter rain, and then we've had some surprising winter rain. So we're sitting not too badly. We should get a game out of this year.
Okay.
Hopefully, all things going to plan.
Yeah, that's exciting. Right. Just your camera zoomed in there. Is that too much? I don't know what's happened there. You should be right. Deke will
We'll
be
be
happy
right.
with that.
He'll figure
Sweet.
it out. Why is it zoomed in like that?
I've got no idea.
Fucking who's on it? Just sit like this.
But let's go, sort of back to that sort of 2002 era, and talk about, obviously grief is going to be a big part of this podcast and how it's affected you and your life and your family. When you were 18, you lost your brother, tragically in a accident.
I guess grief is what's brought me here today to have a bit of a yarn. And people, I'm pretty open about it all and happy to talk about it all. And my thing is too, if I can help the next bloke. And I genuinely believe death is something that is so bloody taboo in our culture, and it shouldn't be. We need to talk about it, and I think it's very important we talk about it and we be open about it and talk about our lost loved ones. Like I said before, I had an older sister. I've had an older brother, got an older sister, and then had quite a few cousins, and what have I got? 9 cousins, and we've all been very close and wonderful grandparents and whatnot. And so when I was 11, my older cousin on Dad's side, he was killed in a flying accident, which rocked the family well and truly. It took a lot of processing. I just remember, obviously you're 11, you sort of look around not really knowing what's happening, but sort of taking it all in and trying to understand it and thinking to myself as an 11-year-old, gee, I thought, this is what you see on TV, like this is what's on the 6 o'clock news. And then fast forward to the 30th of July 2003, I was at work actually down here doing my diesel mechanic apprenticeship, and I heard on the 4 o'clock news that there'd been an accident at Longridge and a Muttaburra man had been killed in an ultralight, and I dropped what I was doing. I thought, fuck, Rodney. And then I thought, no, don't be stupid. Like, they would have told you first about it. Anyway, got in my car and went home, and on my way home, a good family friend rang and said, oh, mate, are you at home? And I said, yeah, in West End, and didn't think much more of it, and then kept going. Another family friend rang, and she said, oh, are you at home, mate? I said, yeah, and I thought that's a bit weird, and then the penny dropped that, it was my older brother, Rodney, he'd been killed in a flying accident in a ultralight. And, it was tough because there was plenty of people in ultralights flying around at the time and plenty of flying going on. It was just, he didn't do anything wrong, wasn't the result of anything. He just on his way home for lunch, and something beyond his control happened that day, and he was the number that got called. Anyway, lives have changed forever as a result of that. He was married with a 11-month-old girl, and then his wife found out she was pregnant again 5 days after the funeral. So, it's been a blessing though, having those wonderful children, and their mother, Sarah's done a wonderful job in raising. They're terrific young adults as a result. And, it was an interesting process. And at that time, I remember thinking, but this doesn't make sense. We've already, and my cousin Andrew, we've already had our turn, but anyway, it wasn't to be. And so there was that period, and then I went home for 6 months and then came back and started a carpentry apprenticeship. And fast forward to May 2006, I was 21 doing my carpentry apprenticeship, and Dad had a few heart problems from time to time beforehand. And then anyway, Mum rang to say he wasn't going so good, and they'd taken him into the Longridge Hospital. And then family friend rang a couple of hours later and said, oh, mate, he's gone. And, Dad had unfortunately passed away as well. That was 2006 when I was 21. And then I start losing track of dates, there's a few. And then on to 2009, a cousin-in-law of mine got killed in a car accident. That was, very sad. 2 young boys and whatnot that he left behind, and a wife. He's a terrific bloke. And then the following year, my beautiful wife Amanda, who I'd known since we were little kids and had known all the family, and her mother had been a very special person in all our childhoods and growing up. And she'd been diagnosed with a brain tumour, and 10 months from diagnosis to being told that was it, and she passed away, which was very sad again. And my wife and I at that stage, we were 25. We'd been together 4 years since we were 21. So that was a very tough time as well, doing that. And it sort of worked out in perfect 3-year increments. You're starting to find your wheels again. When I was 18 from my brother's accident, Dad died, and then just starting to find my wheels again. And I have to, seeing my wife and her family go through it was pretty tough. And then, just this year, my dear old uncle passed away he'd had a wonderful innings, and I know he wouldn't begrudge that his time was up, but unfortunately he passed away, and then another member of his family, father of his grandchildren, very sadly, had a brain tumour and left the earth far too early. So it's been a bit of an interesting journey in the last, since 2003. 1995 in my lifetime. And then it's funny, in that you explain this to people and they're just thinking, Jesus. But then my dear mother, her father, she lost her father in a car accident when she was 19. And, you talk about grandparents. I used to love hearing Grandfather Rod stories. And I guess death and grief has been around us for a lot, like even as a kid, hearing about his stories and whatnot, and then to go through my own experiences. Yeah, it's been interesting, I guess you could say.
Fuck, mate. Yeah. I know. Yeah, it's
anyway,
a tough.
Hopefully I got the tears out of the way. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, it's fucked. Fuck.
So 3 year increments pretty consistently.
Yeah.
Like there or thereabouts.
Yeah.
Since kind of 1995.
Yeah. So I guess I was quite obviously my brother and father are the big ones, and it's funny how you look at life a bit, like to lose my brother and my father and my cousin, and it sort of left behind my uncle and I and my little nephew as the only men in the family left, and you sort of reflect a lot on it, and it's wonderful now. It's been a very emotional time, but a wonderful time it's probably a sexist thing to say, but to have 3 sons and to know that there's blokes again. I know when my first son Charlie was born, I was super excited to have a mate again. So it's been a long while without someone to talk footy with and whatnot.
Yeah. Oh.
So that entire thing just makes me think about how because I was only talking to Louise up one of our psychs upstairs about death and taxes, right? The only fucking 2 things that are guaranteed, and you talking about how death is something that we should be talking more about, because people often pretend it's not something that we're all going to face, or pretend that it's not going to happen, or
definitely.
like other podcasts we've had with Glenn Azar about how people are everyone's guaranteed to die, and most people are trying to get to death as safely as possible. And so, but it makes me the first thing this makes me think of is you talk about your brother, your father. I'm lucky to still have most of my immediate family, and I think I don't take that for granted. I don't take for granted that they're still here with me. Am I spending as much quality time with them as I should, knowing that they're still here, knowing that other people aren't so lucky? I don't know.
Yeah.
But then there's the other side of it, like where, how much time can you spend with as a person? Like, can you be joined? You can't be joined at the hip kind of thing, just like being like, fuck, you're going to, I'm not going to have you around forever. It's like, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I know exactly what you're saying.
I think the thing, though, Dan, is you can't live life. It goes to the bigger thing. You can't live life concerned about it. Like, people go, stay safe, do this, do that now after what's happened. I'm like, well, look, it's all beyond our control. So, and you can't live your life being worried about what's going to happen or feeling guilty that you're not spending enough time.
Or in fear. You can't live in fear of fucking,
exactly. You just got to live your life and enjoy it and not be worried about it, because it's beyond everyone's control.
Yeah,
life.
I suppose it's acknowledging the fact that life is impermanent and that death is guaranteed, and that we are only here for a short time, and it's probably not that you have to be joined at the hip with those that you love all the time and coddle them up and protect them. It's just like making the most of the opportunities of the times that you can spend together, and probably also not fucking letting the little shit that just doesn't matter get in the way.
Impact of
that. Yeah, that's very true. I think,
but that can be hard with families.
Yeah, I think one of the big you can't let it impose your everyday life. I don't know. I'm a bit lost on that. I think so kind of what I was saying is like you've gone through all this stuff and you've lost really close people consistently throughout your life, and there's plenty of people who have never lost a loved one. Yeah.
And then they will get to a point in time where, maybe no one has an accident throughout their life, but everyone ages, and then suddenly, people will start disappearing around them, you know what I mean? So, and it is guaranteed, and the fact that, the grieving process is healthy, and like the pain that you feel when you lose someone is warranted, because it's a reflection of how much they meant to you, in your life. But the thing is that memories never fade, and that's the biggest thing. And you can't.
I think too, I've certainly become, one of my biggest things is I believe life doesn't owe us anything. We owe everything to life. We're not the first ones to be here. We're not the only ones to be here. We won't be the last ones to be here. So we've just got to make the most of everything and get in, have a red hot crack at it. And not be hung up on the fact that waiting for anything. We've just got to live our life.
You're not owed anything.
When did you get that perspective?
I don't know, probably a few years after Dad's death, I started to think about it a bit, and understand that that's how it should be.
And I suppose it's those kind of experiences in life that bring about that perspective and that understanding, and that's probably part of the growth process as well. It's like going through these things do allow you to have these realizations and help you realize, not to take things for granted,
Yeah, and I definitely think through all that too, I guess that came off the back of the realization that I was super, like I appreciate that I love the brother and father I had. I wouldn't swap it for anything. I wouldn't swap my 18 years with my brother or my 21 years with my father for any other brother situation. That was the one I had, and I'm so proud and I'm so lucky to have had them in my life. And I say that to when I say that to people and they lose loved ones, it comes to a point where you're just so appreciative of the fact that you had them. You're not upset that you lost them. You appreciate the fact that you had them in your life.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think where I saw this the other day. It was people were talking about, finite time and how quick it all goes, and even you talking before about, like, you see how quick it goes with, your kids now, and they're only like Charlie's only 5. And, someone was saying, you've got to think of life, in regards to like summer holidays.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're only going to, like, with your kids, you're only going to have 18 summers until they're gone.
Yeah.
Like, you just think about, you're going to have 18.
The best case scenario as well.
That's what I mean. You're going to have 18 summers, and then they're fucking out of there. So you better make the most of those 18 summers. And like that Aziz Ansari guy on Netflix, Aziz Ansari guy, the comedian. What's his fucking name? You know the
I'm
name.
not going to try, but I know who you're talking about.
Same thing. He's talking about, he's like, you go see your parents when they're 60, and you're like, they're going to only be 15 more times you fucking see these people.
Yeah, definitely. I think that for older people, you think, geez, you've only got 5 Christmases left in reality, and you think, geez, you better make it count. But I think that too, you look at old people, talk to grandparents, older people, and they certainly, I think life, you go through times and stages of your life, and you obviously get to a point where you're very accepting of your lifetime and what's going on, and you're happy with it, and you don't begrudge that situation, I suppose. You're ready to go. You talk to old people, and they'll say they've had their run, they're happy with it. Yeah, well, I mean, and that's a pretty powerful thing to happen, I suppose, in one's life, to get to that stage where you're like, well, I'm happy with what has gone on. I'm happy to just enjoy the final moments in peace.
And when the shoe's on the other foot, though, like Stuart Whitby, you can live a number of different lives in the one life, and you can still get to a point in time, where you think maybe you've done your dash, but you can still reinvent yourself as well. You don't have to have, your life experiences box you into sort of one thing or another. Like, it is possible to transform, grow, and change and evolve throughout your life, and through those big moments, use them as catalysts for change. That's without the big moments, it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
like, it's not,
because they're like the defining moments that happen to you in your life. And I suppose, and obviously that is what's happened to you too, Butto. It's like these things have happened, and it's taken you along a journey of a lot of self discovery.
Oh, definitely. And I think too often in life, people are too. You've got to travel that journey to realise it sometimes, and I think too often people are looking for the idealistic way out. Sometimes you've got to travel that journey, or they look back and go, oh, geez, I shouldn't have done that. Like, I'm certainly a person that learns from his mistakes. Well, I hope I'm learning from the mistakes. I've made plenty of them. But you've got to go through that journey sometimes to have those lessons to realise.
I think you've got to go through that journey all the fucking time. Yeah. Like, I don't think it stops. No. That's the thing. Like, I just don't think it ever stops, and accepting that, I think, is a big part as well. And it's just the level to which, you're, I don't want to say suffering, but the events that impact your life. It's just the magnitude to what they are. But
I think that's a big lifetime real life realization, big life realization. When it's never going to just be sweet.
No. You got to have the bad times to measure the good times.
Oh fuck yeah!
To understand it, and I think too, it's important for people. I don't know how to put this part into words, but I think it's important for people to accept their own piece of life and accept what's happening to them. And I don't know, I talk to people and they go, I've never lost anyone. I could never ever be upset about, the problems in my life compared to what you're talking about. And I'm like, well, not really. You're only as good as what you're exposed to.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that detrimentally. I don't think just because of what someone else goes through on a bad front necessarily makes the next person's any lesser.
That's one of the key things with this entire mental health topic, because that comes up in almost every single podcast we have, but it also comes up in every conversation. It's like there's no world that exists where you can compare your suffering or you compare the challenges that you've faced, because then they're not comparable.
No,
like there's too many variables. There's too many different things. There's no point. But that's where a lot of people get stuck.
Yeah,
like stuck. Did I say stuck?
Yeah,
stuck.
That's where people get stuck because they fucking compare themselves to everyone.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and it's like
it never ends.
And you look at stuff from the surface, face value.
Yeah,
and nothing can be taken on face value like that. No,
definitely
it's
not.
like that's what you see is not what the conversations are happening when that person goes to bed at night with their wife, or the pressures that they're facing when they shut their front door at night. What happens inside that home, you don't see it.
Oh, yeah. And what was, like we were saying before, if it's on your mind, it's important.
Yeah.
Josie Tucker podcast.
Fuck, it's a good line. I fucking love that line.
Can you do me a favour?
Yeah, I know.
Can you sneak around there? This thing's fucking cutting my head off.
Can I go for a quick piss?
Go on. Oh, we've locked you in here. I don't know what it's doing. Just leave it there.
Oh, no, we're back.
We're back.
So part 2. No, the way that you talk about grief and the stuff that you've been through, obviously you've had you've had time to process and go through that, the range of emotions. And having lost, so many people so close to you like that, do you feel like you've got, I wouldn't say got good, but you're experienced in the grieving process? Have you felt that through what?
Yeah, it's probably an egotistical thing of me to say that I got experience in the grieving process.
I don't think it's egotistical at all.
I guess, I do. You're used to it. You understand it. You never know. Everyone's situation is very different, what they go through and how they lose someone. Like how my father's death, of heart failure very quickly and whatnot right there at the moment versus my mother-in-law's passing with a brain tumour and that, delayed time of her being sick. They're very different situations, and I think that's with any death. There's always very different situations, different family dynamics, and no two deaths are the same. And no two processes are the same. Every family goes through it differently. But, yeah, it's a funny one in that I think with grief, people, they have to go through the process themselves. And that's what's very hard with grief, is it is a very suffocating, relentless, exhausting emotion, because you never, ever can escape it.
Lingers.
No matter what, it lingers, and you can't, literally when you're in heavy grief, you go to bed and you wake up in the morning and you can feel your mind click into gear. You think of the grief and before your eyes even open, like it just does not leave you. Whereas, if you've got a bad knee or a done shoulder, you can go and rest that, or a bad back, you can rest it. But grief, it's an emotion that never leaves you. And I think the thing I found, I guess it was after my brother's accident more than anything, is the biggest thing is change with grief. Like when you lose someone, your world has changed forever. It will never be the same. And I think too often people lose someone and their friends and family all think, when things get back to normal. Well, guess what? There is no normal. That you've got to find that new normal. And I reckon it took me a good 2.5 to 3 years to find my new normal after my brother's accident. And then when Dad died, I sort of understood the process, so I just relented and went through the process, and it was probably 18 months, 2 years before I found my new normal again. And having that acceptance of the change, that's the hardest part. I think for a lot of people are still waiting for it to go back to normal, and you've got to go through the bad times. You've got to go through it at some point. Like you've got to have the first Christmas. You've got to have the first birthday. You've got to have the first anniversary. Like you can't.
All the significant dates. I was going to say, like that. It's just a constant reminder, isn't it? It's just a constant reminder again and again. And I think it's I'm really interested in how you talked about grief being an emotion that you can't escape. because you are, like, I agree, grief absolutely is an emotion that you can't escape, but also when it comes to mental health broadly, there is a number of other range of emotions that people experience no matter what they go through that are emotions that they feel like they can't escape.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
And I think broadly there's a good lesson in the fact that identifying those emotions and understanding grief is almost like a tangible emotion that people can get a grasp of because they understand, okay, death,
It's that gut
grieving.
feel.
Whereas I suppose when you look at things like depression, anxiety, stress, fear, worry, those kinds of things, often it can be harder for people to kind of
Put them in a bucket.
Put them in a bucket and line it up with something that's happened in their life. But grief is one where you can say,
That's the moment. Yeah.
that's happened, and this is how I feel. But that, I suppose, that identity of emotions like that, not to go too deep on you, but that's part of it. I think that's part of the process that a lot of people need to go through for a wide range of emotions, not just grief.
Yeah.
Because you can't. It's a sure thing in life. You will face that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the acceptance of it's very hard. My dear father couldn't for a long time, and I don't think he really ever got his mind around my brother's accident. I think he couldn't accept it, whereas Mum was much more accepting of it and could process through it a lot quicker and get through that emotion. I don't know whether it's a nature thing. The mother can process it more or what. I don't know, but
mothers are bloody strong, mate. I don't know how they do it, but they fucking do a good job.
They are, definitely. And I think my father felt he'd let my brother down, which was tough. He should never have felt that. But I guess it's probably one of those manly things to protect your young and whatnot.
It's only natural, I think, as well. And I mean, I'm not a parent. You're a new parent. I suppose you'd feel that strong protection, instinct
definitely.
towards your own kids.
Very much so.
And I suppose that's part of, as kids grow up, like, how the fuck, like when they go to their first party or when they get to that age and, there's going to be, alcohol or whatever's going on, but they're going to start to get up to no good. It's like, fuck, how do you...
Oh.
And I think, obviously, I think every single parent has been through that.
Oh, definitely.
And it's all the way through life. And I suppose, like, how do you relinquish that sort of
Jeez,
control?
it must be. That'd be one of the hardest things parents go through. That'd be one of the hardest things they go through is that release, and that's why there's so many people that.
Not my parents. I was an angel. They didn't have to worry about it.
Me too, mate. Of course.
I was wondering, you flew in here like that.
But
do you? I'm interested to know because your brother obviously died in a tragic accident. Is that a work accident, workplace accident technically, or is it just like a flying accident?
Nah, just a flying accident.
Yeah. And obviously he was 11 years older than you, right?
Yep.
And so you've obviously idolised this guy as your big brother. You've got two strong men in your life who have both, died in tragic circumstances. But your old boy, he passed away because of a heart condition, was it?
Yeah.
But you said you feel like it was hard for him to deal with what had happened to your brother.
Yeah.
Do you ever think that your father's physical demise was at all correlated with the grief that he felt from losing, your brother, his son? Or is that a far reach?
I get what you're asking, but in Dad's case, I don't believe so.
Yeah.
You do see a lot of people, they lose a loved one and they just throw themselves into work and they start making poor choices and eating badly and drinking and just letting their life go and hating the world. That certainly wasn't my father's case. If anything, he went the other way. He sort of started realising there was more to life and doing nice things and was fit and healthy and looking after himself and enjoying life rather than letting things go. I just don't think he could ever really get his head around it.
Yeah.
For you, Butto, you've been surrounded by it a lot, and it's a thing that I often think about. Is like, what in your mind, what do you think death is? Like after it, what is it? You know what I mean? Will you see people again?
That's a very good question.
Sitting in darkness?
It's a very good question because I'm not a religious person by any means. I don't really believe in the Lord, but I do reckon we go to a better place. What that is, I don't know. I do reckon that there is something after this lifetime. There is an afterlife to what, we all come into the world at a different time. We all go out at a different time. Yeah, I do reckon we go somewhere. I reckon there's something out there. What it is, I've got absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
I always imagine, this would fucking sound stupid, I always imagine it like riding fucking jet skis up in the sky or some shit, you know what I mean? Like this, like
the Jetsons or something.
That sounds enjoyable.
Yeah, well that's what I reckon.
Where have you fucking been?
Yeah. Fucking, just cruising around. Like I agree. Like I think there's something, like I kind of believe in kind of more the energy of it, I suppose. Like, ashes to ashes, dust
Yeah,
to
I
dust
think-
type thing in the cycle of it all. Like, I mean, I think, and we often, in this business, like I've obviously lost one of my best mates to suicide, which was a big defining factor in sort of why we started this thing. And we always have moments in this business where, fuck, the whole thing could fall over, and then something happens, and we
But that's the joy of life. Everything's
exactly.
It's a punt, isn't it?
We're all balancing on a fucking
And we're like, fuck, we're like, he's doing something, this bloke.
But he's always like, mate, your mate up there is pulling something. But the thing is, he says it, and I'm like, fuck, you know what? That honestly wouldn't surprise me. Like, if he was up there pulling some strings somehow, do you know what I mean? It's like, whether it's true or not, the thought of it's kind of nice.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
And I think that's like, and that's a keeping memory alive, and
Question for you, Dan. How old were you when your mate committed suicide?
26.
Yeah, right. So you're still largely. And how did you and your core group of mates react to that situation? Did you get around each other? Did you just pretend it was there but didn't talk about it?
We got around each
Did you
other.
go to the pub and get smashed?
Everyone came over to my place and we got pretty smashed, to be honest. Everyone sort of got around my joint. We probably had, because you came around that day.
It was like a fucking war zone that afternoon. I'll never forget. There were fucking people just everywhere in tears. Fucking, it was a mess.
Yeah, we did. We did what is probably the wrong thing to do technically, but I don't regret it. We just got on the fucking beers and we were just like.
I asked that question largely because I think it's a very hard one for young people to know what to do, and I think to myself sometimes, like, you want to get around people when they've lost someone, and when you're young it's hard. What are your mates going to say? What are they going to do? I had lots of great mates who were around me, it's I think the fact that you all got together and actually were doing something together, like, you might have all gone and got drunk together and you might look back and say, well, it's probably not the right thing to do, but the fact you were together, acknowledging it,
that's the right thing.
The raw emotion was there, and I reckon that's a really good thing too when you got a mate that's down or a mate that's grieving, to actually just front up. Like when my brother got killed, my best mate was working in Kununurra and he drove for 3 days to come over and he didn't say anything about anything, but the fact that he turned up and drove all that way still is the most amazing thing anyone's ever done. Like,
that's awesome.
And I think that if I could give any advice to any young people out there that see their mates go through something, just be around them. Like, turn up, come, and if your mate's doing it tough or they've lost someone, instead of going out on the town on the Friday night, get a carton of beer and go around to his house and watch the Broncos get pumped with him.
Fuck, talk about grief.
I think that is a bit of a black hole that young people don't talk about enough, and they don't get out there and mention it. And it doesn't have to be the soppy correct thing to say, but the actual action of doing something with your mates, I think, is a very important thing.
But that's the most powerful thing is just being there.
And that's
because it's not there to you're not there to solve anything.
Yeah,
you're just
exactly.
there.
You can't solve it.
Yeah,
you can't solve it.
Just
Grief
there.
you can't solve. You just got to work through it.
Yeah. I've had a really positive experience with grief and death as well in my life. I lost my great auntie on Australia Day in 2009.
Yeah.
And for me, it was one of the great innings.
Yeah.
She was I can't even remember how old she was. She was about 90.
I reckon north of 70, you're going well.
Yeah,
really.
Awesome innings, but like for her, she's one of the closest people that I've ever lost in my life. And she was in hospital. She was failing. She was in Concord Hospital down in Sydney, and I was out with one of my mates, Reese, and my girlfriend at the time, Lou. We were over at her place, and it was like fucking 8 o'clock at night, and something came over me, and I was like, I've got to go. I've got to go to the hospital. And I drove, and it was a Friday night. Australia Day, I fucking probably shouldn't have been able to drive, but, I was fine. Yeah, driving to the hospital, my grandma was sitting there next to her in the bed, and I sat on the other side, and we both held her hand, and she just died right there. Right there, and I am fucking so thankful.
Yeah.
Like, to the day that I die, that was one of the best experiences of my life, that I could be there for that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I look at that as a really positive experience with grief and death. Like, I was obviously still really sad.
Yeah.
Really still went through the grieving process, but at that age it's a different kind of grief because that's a life well lived.
Yeah,
and,
very much so.
And it's also a privilege to be able to accompany someone into the afterlife. You know what I mean? Like I just felt like
Same token though, Dan, like you say, that was your experience with it, and that's what's present in your mind, and that's, you know, you shouldn't step back and go, oh, it was just an old person. It's not the case. It was someone you'd lost.
Exactly. It was someone I lost, but I think probably the point is more like that you can have positive experiences with grief as well, you know, and you can have when you've had someone with a life well lived, and you know you can sort of be there and comfort them and know that, you know, fuck, I really cherish the time that we had together, and fuck, whatever that came over me that night, that was like, I've got to go to the hospital.
It's weird.
I'll never know, but like I look at that and I was just like, God, I'm just so thankful for that, you know.
It's those fucking great, but grief, it just never disappears, does it? It just lingers around.
Do you guys, Eddie, have you ever talked to you guys, your family's in transit a bit at the moment, a few in Brisbane, a few in Longridge? You ever talk to your parents about where they want to be buried?
No, never
because you know, in theory, all going to plan, they're going to go before you are. Sorry, Ken and Sue, no hard feelings.
Well,
but I think it's a very important thing to have those conversations. Dad always said, he goes, it's all written out in the sand. So when he got the tap on the shoulder, we knew that he wouldn't be upset by that. He wouldn't have begrudged that. But then I think it brings a lot of peace to the family left behind if they know what their loved ones wanted.
Yeah.
Or where they wanted to end up, or what meant something to them.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I urge people to really talk to their loved ones about those final things, because that's the thing. The week after the death, you know, that is the hardest part, when you waking up every day going, is this really, walking around the days and having a bit of an understanding, a bit of a plan there in your family as to what you want to do.
Well, Mum's always said she wanted to be cremated. Mum's always said, cremate me. And then don't have a funeral, just have a big party, heap of people around on the piss, and just have some fun and play some great music.
Yep.
Just play ABBA, fucking all that good shit. You know what I mean? That's what she's like. She's like, I don't want a funeral, I just want a party.
See, and I reckon that's cool. Like, a lot more people, you're seeing that a lot more now. I think some funerals are really good in that they're doing their own thing. Like, there's a bit of over the topness, I think, at some funerals. That's a pretty out there thing to say, dare I say it out loud. But some funerals, it's
on record now.
No.
We had a wonderful, wonderful gentleman, Father Alan Lamb. He was a Welsh dude. He loved drinking, smoking. He'd been a Franciscan friar. He was a priest. The family had known him forever. He married all my cousins. He married my brother. He done a heap, and he had the gig to bury. As he said, he was crying one day. He said, I married Rodney Button, and then now I'm burying Rodney Button. And he buried my father and buried my mother-in-law, and he was just a hell of a dude. And he was big on planning out weddings and planning out funerals. He said, you've got to hold the crowd and you've got to get it right. He said, and, you know, he'd weep openly, and he'd say, well, it's the only time, you know, this is the only time I'll do Ian Button's funeral. I think that was a sentiment that really hit home for me. I think you've got to get it right, but it comes back to having that conversation with your loved ones about what they want to do.
And so when your old boy passed away, you knew what he wanted?
We did. Yeah, he I guess about being buried, like when my brother was buried, Mum was a bit, young fella, he should be out somewhere in the paddock, flying, you know, being free, not cooped up in a cemetery. But then it also meant a lot to my father. His parents buried in Longridge, his nephew's buried in Longridge, he's got a heap of family buried in Longridge, and we naturally, at the time, buried my brother in Longridge. And then when Dad died, it made sense to him, because he was a Longridge fella through and through, that his parents were there, his son was there, his nephew was there, his aunts and uncles were there. But so when it was sort of just a formality too, that we knew where he was going, what was going on, and we'd had a practice run 3 years beforehand, dress rehearsal, so we were down with what happens. But because it's funny, until you go through it, there's so much in organising a funeral. We've always been blessed. We've had wonderful family and around us that have always helped out and pointed us in the right direction, done things, and there is a lot to it. My sister jokes that she's going to write an app about, so when someone dies, you get the app and tells you what to do and what you got to jump through legally, and what hymns and songs and everything you should do, because there is a lot in it to organise, that's for sure. But it's and even my wife, Amanda, and I, we've had a conversation. Obviously, her mother is buried in Muttaburra, there in the cemetery, in a great little cemetery, and my father and my brother in Longridge, and we argue about where we're going to end up. And the deal is, well, if we die before we're 40, whoever goes gets to go with their family, because hopefully whoever's remaining may meet someone and go on to have a very happy and prosperous life. And then when we get to 40, we've got to bloody sit down and work it out, nut it out again for the next stage. And
Yeah, righto. So you're actually having those conversations really in a not a sad sense, in a very practical sense, like in an actual practical sense of like what
very open conversations,
and planning it and understanding it, where it's all going to go and how. Because once again, like for the dead person, it doesn't matter, but then for the family remaining, it is a big thing to help. It's something I really recommend everyone to go home and have a conversation about.
Yeah, that's a great call. And things like, possessions, right? And like having to actually, the practicality of having
and just doing it fucking properly. Like I was telling you about Joey. So you remember Joey Ross?
Yeah, old Joe.
So he passed away, must
He's
have been
a funny man.
18 months
What a
ago.
funny Joe,
yeah.
so.
And great man, like fucking, piss taker, bloody, lived a very interesting life. And he, it's really sad because like it's a bit of a funny story, but long story short, there were these war medals.
Yep.
They were the Ross medals. They went missing, right?
Yep.
And everyone, my psychotic grandmother was blaming fucking.
She listened to the podcast?
I don't think she wouldn't have hearing aids or something. She was blaming some family member. Mum was telling me about it. Anyway, Mum went over to Joey's place one afternoon to, Mum was like making him dinners and stuff and took it over to him. And looking up on the wall, she's like, "What are these medals here, Joey?" And he's like, "Oh, they're bloody Alistair and Cecil Clare Ross's war medals." And Mum goes, "Oh, you've got them." And he goes, I've had them, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, "So Eddie's going to get them. I'm going to give them to Ed." And Mum's like, "Oh, Joey, don't." No, he's like, no, I want to give it to him, blah, 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 And anyway, but Joey never did a will.
Yeah.
Anyway, family came in and they've disappeared. We'll never see them again. Like who knows where they are. But it was sort of, people that do know what they want, they need to get it down so it's clearly fucking defined what does happen. You know what I mean?
It's got to be in writing.
Because these conversations, nothing, you know what I mean? But I really laughed about that because I was like, fuck, Joey's like, yeah, they're fucking Eds. We're going to give them to him. And anyway, so funny. I never see those. I never even laid eyes on the fucking things, but I've heard about them pretty much my entire life.
No, he's gold. Good old Joe. He's
Poor
a funny
bastard.
man.
Oh, man, he was a unit. But
I think too, this is a bit of a random one I ask people when we're talking about death is, do you ever picture your own funeral? Like, do you ever sit down and go, who would my 6 pallbearers be? Who would I want to do my eulogy? How would I feel about my own funeral? What would I see? It's something we never think about. It seems a stupid, extreme, black, dark thing to think about, but at the same time, possibly it's a good way to get the conversation. You sit down and think about what, you don't have to tell anyone, what would you want? And then start talking to your loved ones about it or your mates.
mate, it's the fucking.
And be open about it.
It's about the eulogy and what your eulogy wants to be. You know what I mean? Because I was talking about this on that trip to Fink the other day, and I was like, there's like this truck driver that we used to work with at Lake Nash, and I used to often think about him and narcotics, truck driver, working big days, fucking never home. And I used to be like, fuck. I was like, what are they going to say at that bloke's fucking funeral?
Yeah.
What are they going to say about that bloke? Like, that's what that life that he's living is fucking hardcore. You know what I mean? And there's no real substance to it apart from just work, you know? And I've always thought about that and then like how I want people to talk about me and not talking about fucking, anything like that. Just who I've been and who I've been for people. You know what I mean? I'm like, fucking, does that make sense?
It's
Not accomplishments, but who I was.
But I think that's best summed up by the stories, by the yarns that are told. In terms of like, oh, you remember the time that he did this, you remember the time that this happened, you remember the fucking this, like, you know what I mean? It's just story after story, like that, like the fond memories, like that's to me like what a good.
And I've been to funerals before when they haven't had those conversations. Like I've been to funerals when no one was talking about who died.
Yeah,
and I'm like, fuck, that's tragic.
But I suppose, Eddie, this probably. That story about the truck driver, the narcotics and whatnot, and being a weapon and whatnot, like it probably brings us into the big picture a bit, going back to talking about grief and everything. Everyone's life's so different. Like the other day, a fella at home died. He was a bachelor. No one really knew his family. They were a bit like, geez, who do we tell? Like, who do we ring? Like, who gets his car and his bag of clothes? And everyone's going, oh, it's so sad. He's got a nephew somewhere down south. But then that's the life he's made. He's lived that life. He's obviously happy in that life. And is it that sad at the end of the day? Like, it's sad that he's died, yes, but where is the sadness? Who's the sadness for? Is it for him or the people he has or hasn't left behind? It's like the truck driver. He might die and all his family, well, that was him. That's how he used to roll. Like, good on him. He had fun.
I know. I suppose it's just that. I suppose it's just that comparison thing and being like, I just don't want that for me. You know what I mean?
That's fair enough.
And I'm not saying like that is a bad that's a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, for me, like, fuck, I'd feel like I've probably not done what I needed to do. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't fulfilled my potential.
But I guess, is that your thing? Like, are you looking at the bigger picture of life, of where you fit in? What do you think? How do you see your life? What footprint do you want to leave behind?
Well, for me, I just want to give everything a fucking red hot crack. And I don't want to be sitting there when I'm, hopefully fucking 85, looking back to being like, fuck,
I had a good run.
I wish I'd fucking had a go at that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't know if I've got a high tolerance of risk, but I feel like I'm willing to take chances.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm happy to have a go at that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm happy to have a go. If it doesn't work out, cool. I'll try something else. But like, I'm willing to fucking go out and have a go, because rather than sit back and get to like that I don't want that middle-age crisis thing to happen to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I look at that and I'm like, I don't want to get to that age where I'm like, what the fuck have I been doing?
Yeah. Yep.
And what do I need to do now to make sure I feel I've filled the cup up for the rest of the years I've got? You know what I mean? Like, I want to be not cramming shit in, but I want to be fucking like...
Yeah, like they say, what's that saying? It's not the destination, it's the journey getting there. You want to make sure your journey's full.
But that's
and you
happening.
have a good time.
Another one that comes on this podcast a
all
lot.
the time. But that we're lucky enough that we're on this fucking really cool journey. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And there's other really cool shit that's going to happen. And then like last week when Dan and I were in here, in tears, talking about what the future looks like. You know what I mean? Like, we've got two whole different, like, we've got a married, like, I'm married here with him, and I'm also married to Lance. Yeah. Married to Lance. You know what I mean? So I got two marriages.
She knows
basically.
about
She
it.
knows all
I
about
actually
it.
was thinking about this the other day, and I reckon you and I have spent more time together
than
what you and your wife have spent.
Oh.
But that's also not uncommon for mates, but...
Oh, yeah.
In ours,
We're more de facto.
But that's a matter of de facto.
But then that's like, and then the journey that's going to take, you know what I mean? Like, we eventually want to be on a place, you know what I mean? I'd love to have fucking 30,000 acres and fucking some sheep and some cattle and bring my kids up on a place somewhere. But then it's also managing this side and being like, well, I can't really quite do that for a little bit longer because we've got to be here. And you know what I mean? It's all those
that's
little
that richness
things.
of life too. Like, you guys are obviously, you see the way you fellas bounce through the door, you're happy with what you're doing, you love what you're doing, and you guys... I'd imagine you're not doing this for the money. You're doing this for the richness of life. There's not big coin in there.
It's not. It's bloody. Mate. It is. It's definitely.
Mate, we'll build an empire.
It's definitely. It's
I
definitely the journey and the things that we're learning along the way, and the fucking people.
Yeah,
we meet awesome fucking people.
Yeah,
you know,
and it's the moments as well. Like, fucking just when you rocked up today, my heart was fluttering because of what happened with that dude who's reached out to TX, just now.
Yeah,
who was suicidal. He's on the edge, and like, it's just a few points of contact in one day, and he's got onto a psych, and Nat, our psych up there, her fucking heart was racing too. Like, she was coming up and down the stairs. She's like, "Oh my god, like, this should just happen." Like, rah, rah. And it's like those little moments there. It's like almost. If you look at every single fucking thing we do here with that shirt that you're wearing, like, the point of that...
Right up to looking at what sort of Canterbury type style short we're going to make for Christmas with a stripe on the fucking side.
But the point was a shirt to start a conversation about mental health, and then it's developed into having a not-for-profit, providing, free psychology, and right then when you walked in, a real-life example of it happened where a shirt started a conversation. It's established it. A service upstairs where someone who was suicidal has made it to that point, and today they go home alive.
Yep.
And so that it worked. So right there is one case where it's worked.
Yeah.
And that's fucking awesome. And that happens every now and then, or it probably happens a lot in different ways for us. But we're not like, sure, we want to reduce the rate of blue collar suicide or whatever, but. Fuck, it's the challenges and it's the small wins and it's the little experiences and the laughs that we have and the stories and, like you say, the people along the way and all that stuff. If you didn't enjoy it, if you didn't enjoy those bits, then that happening today upstairs wouldn't hold the same gravity.
Definitely,
Do you know what I mean? It's not, have and there's no point where we're like, we'll sell 50,000 shirts and we'll be sweet. Like, that's
not how it works.
That's not it. You don't
Fuck, I wish it was that easy.
That's not the point of it, and it's never going to happen. And if we're both sitting here going, we'll get to 50,000, and then we'll put our feet up. You know what I mean? Even though we're probably surpassed that. But, like, the point is, it's like, you're right. It is the journey, not the destination. And if you can't enjoy those small bits along the way, well, then there's no destination that's ever going to be anywhere near as enjoyable.
Yeah.
And I think it comes up a lot, that journey and destination saying, but it's
so true. It's so true.
And if you can find, whatever it is that you do in life, it becomes with your family or what you do for a living or your hobbies, there's no point where if you put enough time and stress and kind of negative energy where you're not enjoying the journey into something that it will suddenly get good. Yep. It just doesn't. It's not the way it works. Yeah. It's a really great insight for both of us.
I reckon,
and obviously you as well.
I reckon now, I'm age mid-30s, I'm starting to realise that the richness of life is in what you do. It's not the dollar tree part of it. The dollar tree part of it's just a tool to get there. It's what you actually do day in, day out. That's where the richness of life is. And you see people that can't. You feel sad for them because they don't know what they want to do. They're 40-odd and still just plugging away doing a job to pay the bills, but they don't actually understand what it is they want to do.
Mate, it's like, Lance quit a job yesterday. You know what I mean? And I was like, fuck, this is so exciting. You can go and do whatever you want now.
Yep.
But I couldn't, it was so hard for me to explain that to her before she quit.
Yep.
Because she couldn't see it.
Yeah.
Because she was like, this job's my identity. This is all I've been doing. I'm like, but you fucking hate it.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, yeah, but there's good parts. And I was like, well, every time we're talking, it's all about like the stress and the work-life balance and how much, how hard it is. And, you're not getting like the remuneration that you need, you want, And now, like last night, after she quit, fuck, it was like everything had just like lifted off.
The world had lifted off her shoulder.
And she was like, oh, my skills are so transferable. I was like, fucking oath. I was like, you can go sell whatever you want. I was like, you can go sell fucking head bales or you can go and sell fucking cleaning equipment, whatever the fuck you want, and everything in between. Like, you just go and find. I was like,
she could be a jodhpur saleswoman.
She could be a jodhpur saleswoman. But I was like, I was like, if I were you, I'd just find 10 companies that you love and shit that, like 10 companies you love and the stuff they sell. Fucking just call them up.
Yep, get into it.
Hi, I'm Alana Ross. I love your company. I love what you do. I'd love to sell. There you go. You know what I mean? And she's going to be on this cool adventure now for the next few months, like finding that next thing.
Yeah, working out.
And that journey.
Selling shirts.
Yeah,
get her in here selling shirts.
Fuck. But that's a really exciting thing. And it took, but there's like her example is sort of what you're saying too. Like there's a lot of people out there that it's that destination is death. They want to get there comfortably. They don't want to take too many risks. They can't see that there's limited downside because it's like, okay, you're in a job you hate. If you quit, what's the worst thing that happens? You get another job that you hate. Yeah. Fuck. Okay. That's not
quit that one too.
That's not really that bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's real. Yeah. It's interesting people's perspective and how. How you can adapt and change people's ideas of what is reality. Really.
I will say that the biggest challenge in all that is it's when everything's rosy and when you can sit at a table like this and high spirits and talk about this stuff and talk about your perspectives. It does seem easy, but
I know.
But when you are on the other side of the coin, and
when you've actually got to do it, when you've got to get out of your comfort zone and go and do it,
it's not easy, and so that's got to be acknowledged because,
absolutely,
I know. It's when you're in it, you can slip back into it at any time and find yourself in that point and think, "Fuck, what am I?"
And then back on your laurels and be like, "Oh fuck, I knew I shouldn't have quit."
But and then it's like like you're saying, Lance quitting, and now she's like, "Fuck yeah." And then you got to bite your tongue because you're like, I've been fucking saying this the whole time. It doesn't matter. You can't say that, can you? So it's like, it's interesting. Life, huh?
Yeah, this has been great, Butto. Fuck, thanks so much for sharing that. It was raw. It was real. I really appreciate your openness and your vulnerability.
Yep.
And telling that story. And it wasn't all of it either, but we're fucking airing a bit in here. And
we can do part 3 because we did part 1 and 2 in the same sitting. We can do part 3 another time.
But mate, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for asking me. You guys are doing a wonderful job with what you're doing.
What are we going to do with that shirt? Like
we'll have to frame it or something.
What do we do with that? Fuck, it's a relic.
It is a relic. It is.
It's seen some work.
But thanks so much.
No worries, mate.
Congratulations on the new bub.
Thank you. I urge you to go home, talk to your loved ones, start the conversation, talk about where it's all going to end because it will end one day. Death is the realest thing in this lifetime.
Absolutely. And
don't have a conversation. It's not a taboo thing. It's not a taboo thing, and don't be scared too to talk to people about loved ones. My brother's best mate still takes the piss out of him. whenever we talk about him. And it's the most heartwarming thing ever. It's great.
That's awesome.
It's awesome, mate. Thanks so much, and we'll chat again soon.
Good on you,
good.
Butto.
Thanks,
Thanks, mate.
Oh, thanks, Butto.
If I stop, I'll die.